Hello, hello. It's the clock's just gone past 10:30, so I think we'll make a start. Welcome, everybody, to the first open meeting of 2026. 2026, I don't know how many of you know, but 2026 is Perth U3A's 40th anniversary year, and it's quite an achievement. I don't think we joined the Third Age Trust for a year or two after it was inaugurated, but this is our anniversary year of starting, and we're hoping to organise something a little bit later in the spring to mark that and to celebrate that. I think I was going to say is after the last meeting in December, several of us made a little talk about recruitment, succession planning. I'd remind you that we don't have a vice chair at the moment, and I said I would be chair of the organisation through until the AGM. So we're still looking for somebody who might want to come forward and act as an officer, as a vice chair, as the chair. And I'm planning to send an email out to group leaders on that topic fairly soon. Okay, I now call upon Yvonne to come up and give us the notices.
Good morning, everybody. I'll start with the mundane. Unit 7, we've now got cleaning in place once a week, and I believe they also did a deep clean before they started their regular once-a-week cleaning. So it's looking quite good in there at the moment. Please try and keep it that way in between the weekly cleans. That would be appreciated. Now, as Richard just said, it's our 40th anniversary year, and we're hoping to arrange some sort of event later in the year to mark that. We have 3 long-standing members who've come together to start to think about this and what might be in the event, and they've got some good ideas, but there's only 3 of them, and we think we're going to need more than that to get the thing off the ground with the planning of it and the organising it. So if you're even just a little bit interested in helping out with that, we'd really appreciate it. And the person to speak to is Wilma Coleman, who I don't think I can see her. No, she's not here today. But when I send this piece of paper out, there'll be a means to contact her. And hopefully this time the means to contact her will actually work, unlike my last 2 attempts where nobody could actually make the link work. So that's that. What else? Oh, yes. The U3A in Scotland is organising a summer school on the 24th of August at Stirling University. I think there's more than 1 day's worth of it, and you can choose a stream, and I can't remember what, there's about 6 or 7 different subject streams that you can pick to attend events on. And I'll send a flyer out about that when I send out this document to everybody. And then finally, you may remember from last year that I started doing a Spotlight on Groups section of the News Roundup. In fact, I only did 1, and then it fell by the wayside. But the committee would like me to reintroduce it. So on the back of the News Roundup is a spotlight section that looks at a section of our groups every time, just to let you know a bit more about what's on offer, because we're really keen that you all get the most out of your membership of the U3A. There may be other groups that you don't know about that take your fancy. So this time I've highlighted the arts, music and craft groups. I don't think I'll read out my list here, but do have a look at that and give it some thought. You can see more about the groups on our website, and indeed if you've got an idea for a new group, so you don't fancy anything that you see listed, you can contact Ray Hodgson, and again, his contact details are on here. And that's all from me. Back to Richard.
Thank you, Yvonne. Okay, the main event, it's my pleasure to introduce Mathew Taylor, who is Director of Racing and Clerk of the Course at Perth Racecourse, and also Assistant Director of Events at the Scone International Horse Trials, which I think was started just last year. I went along to take some photographs, and it was a terrific event. So Mathew's very kindly going to talk to us about Perth Racecourse. Thank you.
Brilliant. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, all right, you can hear me. Well, thank you for having me. No pressure being the first talk in the 40th year of your anniversary. I didn't know that when I was signing up, but that's fine. So yeah, I'm going to talk to you through Perth, basic since racing started in 13, right down through to the modern day now. Don't worry, I've not got a slide on every year from 1613, so it won't be too long. Before I start, I'll just give you a bit of overview of myself. I'm not from a racing background. I've been at Perth. I'm starting my 7th year. I actually had a bit of a weird route into racing. I was studying economics at university, and to help myself go through, I started working in a bookmaker's, William Hill. I have started watching racing 3 to 4 times a week. Started getting a bit of a bug of it. When I graduated, I decided that after studying for 3 years and paying X amount of thousands to study, I didn't like economics. So I went to work for William Hill head office in Leeds, where I did a lot of the online odds. After about a year of that, I wanted something a bit more exciting, so I applied for the British Horse Racing grad scheme that was down in London. I did 2 years at Ascot Racecourse, and then 7 years ago, the then boss Hazel Poplinski actually gave me the opportunity to become trainee clerk of the course. And I've slowly, obviously, just gone through the ranks a little bit. And now me, myself, and Morag Conahan run it. So, as I said, I'll walk you through, I'll say a brief history. There's quite some good history. What I've tried to do is just merge it with a bit of key world events at the same time, so it's not me just waffling about Perth Racecourse for the next 40 minutes. And then at the end, sadly I didn't plan to, but I should have thought about it. I will just give you a little bit of an overview of how the Scone Horse Trials went. Because as I say, it was a huge success for us, and not to put our team down at a surprising success. We thought we would have a few years of plugging through, but it was a really good event. So yeah, I'll just crack on. So I don't know how many people know a lot about Perth Racecourse, but Perth Racecourse is Scotland's most northerly racecourse. We race from April to October this year. We've actually dropped the October fixture next year because of the weather. We actually abandoned it. We've abandoned it twice, so we've never. Oh no, sorry, we abandoned it last year. We ran it this year, sorry. But it's just really difficult to the team to get on in October, as you know. The weather turns very quickly in Scotland, so we are just able to September now. But we're very lucky, even though we are a summer jumping course. We do attract some of the top horses and trainers from UK and Ireland. So it's a really exciting time. So again, we're just on the banks of the River Tay, in the scenic grounds of Scone Palace. They used to be our landlord, and now they are our owners, but I'll get to that later on. Obviously, Scone Palace, the crowning of the place of the Scottish Kings, which is quite associated for what they call the traditional sport of kings. And obviously, I'm very biased, but I do believe we've got one of the best backdrops in the country to race in, and always helps when it's in the summer. I probably wouldn't say that in the Dreek winters. So we used to be flat racing, and I'm talking only till about 1891. We are exclusively jump racing now in the summer. We have a right-handed track, which is 10 furlongs, 1 mile 2. It's relatively flat, and we have 8 fences a circuit with our very key feature of a water jump in front of the stands, which a lot of people love to take some great photos of. As I said, we run April to September. We have 3 major events. So we obviously have the Perth Festival in April. That's been a really good growth in the last 3 or 4 years. We probably had about 8 to 10% increase in crowd, and then a lot more better quality of horses coming, which has been great. Obviously, we have the infamous Ladies' Day in May, and we also have the Perth Gold Cup, which was reinvigorated in 2001 by the late manager Sam Mooreshead. Obviously, we're not just horse racing, and you know, I don't know how much you all know about what's going on with taxation and gambling, but we need to kind of make ourselves a more dynamic venue to protect ourselves from anything that we can't control. So we do variety of events. Weddings have died down since the dreaded COVID. I don't like mentioning that. But we do a lot of conferences, expedition, team building days. And obviously we've moved into other equine events, which is the feature was Schoon Horse Trials. But since then, unsurprisingly, we've been approached by a lot of other equine events, small and large, to try and use the facilities to the best. So, you know, the future's quite bright in that respect. Again, obviously, I'm quite biased, but I think we're a very friendly, welcoming racecourse with obviously the famous Scottish hospitality. We've got a wide variety of restaurant bars in the grandstand, and then we obviously have the picnic enclosure in centre course for a bit more family type vibe, which is great. We reached our max at about 7,500, 8,000 visitors. We'll probably hit that about 3 times a year. To say we only raised 12 times, if you're maxing out your crowd a quarter of the year, we're quite proud of that. But we're always trying to look it to grow on the other days. I've got a quick video. Apologies, this is from 2019. We are just doing another video, but it's not quite ready yet. But yeah, just to give you a bit of an overview of what we look like. I'm going to say I didn't check the sound with John, so I do apologise if the sound doesn't work on this. I should have done that. Yeah, it's not going to work. Sorry about that. Oh, no, it is.
Hi, welcome to the Perth Racecourse.
Oh, there we go. So yeah, as you can see, that's just kind of again, like I said before, racing in the summer massively helps. We all know, especially now, the weather is everything for big event days. So, and also, I hope you saw in the centre of the course as well, we do try and create this family type vibe. So there's a bit of everything. No, it's not come back on. Yeah, we'll have to try the backup mic. Oh, I think we've got that one, haven't we? I can use that one if that one's working.
Yeah, I think so. Let's bring it up a little bit.
Thank you very much. Is that okay? Yeah, perfect. Sorry about that. So, as I said, what we'll do is I'll just take you through a brief history of Perth and Then we'll go into the Schoon Horse Trials after, and then obviously the floor will be more than welcome open to questions when we're done. So racing started in 1613 at Perth. It was actually on the South Inch when King James I was in reign of England, and it was basically only a couple of races, and the prize was the Silver Bell. Also in the world at that time, that was when Shakespeare's Globe Theatre was burnt down. Then we move on to 1621. So the Scots were so passionate about racing that a law was passed that no one should win more than 100 merks, and then the surplus was given to the poor, so still a bit of a community engagement back in 1621. Also, Galileo invented the telescope. You will wonder why there's a picture of a horse. That horse is called Telescope, and he's quite a famous national hunt sire now. I was going to put a telescope up, but I thought it was a bit boring. 1631, so this was the first time of the two-day meeting on the South Inch. So this is actually the oldest race day in our calendar. This is the glorious finale in September. So it's got loads of heritage, that meeting. Theoretically, it's nearly 400 years old. The Silver Bell was then moved up to the Three Bells, and the Three Bells, so the three maces that I mentioned before, actually melted down and they were made into a cup. Obviously, that cup has obviously been lost. And Mount Vesuvius was erupted in 1631 as well. Move on to 1687. It was the first Sunday fixture on the South Inch, with the Silver Cup being presented to the winner. I do believe that was in August. However, my history books have been a bit sketchy looking for all of this. And also on this date, King James II disbanded the English Parliament, and Isaac Newton's first principle was published in the Royal Society. On to 1734, as you can see, not much happened in the years before. The three purses offered at this meeting were to the value of £25, which back in the day would have been quite a significant amount of money. Racing took place during the next few years with the support of the Perth Town authorities, the Perth Town Council now on the South Inch. As you can see, that is the Old English guinea, which obviously, I don't know how much you know about the racing sales, but they still sell horses in guineas in the modern day, which is a bit baffling. And a guinea is, I think it's £1.05 equivalent of, which, yeah, strange amount, but anyway. In 1745, Bonnie Prince Charlie allegedly used the race on the South Inch to cover meetings to finalise plan for the Jacobite Rising. And Sir Robert Walpole dies as the first English Prime Minister. In 1761, race meetings were promoted by the Society of Scots Hunters and by the town. So this is when the hunt started to get involved, and the Perth hunt was actually involved in Perth Racecourse till 2023. The society was a forerunner to the Caledonian Hunt, who continued to support horse racing in Scotland, and they actually started up Musselburgh Racecourse in 1831 or something like that. So Perth Racecourse was first, and then 70 years later came along Musselburgh Racecourse under the Caledonian Hunt, and the Caledonian Hunt is still quite heavily involved at Musselburgh Racecourse. And also in the world at that time was the coronation of George III and Queen Charlotte. That is actually the logo, apparently, of the Caledonian Hunt, but please don't pull me up if it's incorrect, because that's all I could find. So in 1784, the Perth Hunt Club formed, with hounds and huntsmen. Perth Racecourse, Perth races then come under the auspices of them, and that moved to the North Inch at the instigation of the 8th Earl of Canule. So there'd been, 150 years at the South Inch, 160 years. It was then to the North Inch, and then in 1908, we then moved to the grounds that you know now as Scone Palace. And then also in the world, there was the first balloon ascent in Britain by James Tatler in Edinburgh. In 1791, Perth was included in the official turf return to Scotland, and then given greater status because the Caledonian Hunt started to sponsor. Obviously, during this time with the new sponsorship, publicans were advised to have a good stock of spirits and port available, because obviously the nobility at that time, we all know, likes a good drink. 1807, the temporary stand that had been built on the North Inch collapsed, and there was a lot of notable injuries, including the Duke of Athol, Lord Killard, and the Earl of Mansfield. From far as I can see, nobody died. But there you go. And this was obviously height of Napoleon, and he decided to attack Russia, which I doubt he'd be doing today. 1818, this was the first meeting of the Caledonian Hunt in Perth. This was the Perth Hunt undertook the preparation of the course and built another grandstand opposite the winning source on the far side of this course, but it was under the Caledonian Hunt, so the two hunts were working in together. And also in Glasgow at this time, this was the first year to be lit by gas, which I thought was quite interesting, actually. 1825, the Perth meeting was extended to 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This wasn't the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday we know now in April. This was actually still in September. And this was the first running of the Perth Gold Cup, which had a big prize pot of £100. The Perth Hunt and City Bowls were also held during that week. So this is really the first growth of, the racing in Perthshire. Got to remember, all this is still flat racing. We never held jumps racing until later on. So 1855, so George Fordham wins a race on Perth for his first as 14 jockey stands for, but he only weighed 3 stone 10. So as you can imagine, obviously quite a small man. I mean, most toddlers would be more than 3 stone 10 nowadays, wouldn't they? So it is amazing when you look through all this kind of stuff. And also, David Livingstone then reached Victoria Falls in Africa at that time as well. So this was the first big scandal, we'll call it, of the racing under the Perth Hunt. There was charges of race fixing, which should put Perth racing in jeopardy. The change of management was requested. It was proposed that due to the lack of support of the Perth Hunt over the years, this should only be once ever held over the meetings should be held every 4 years on the visit to the Caledonian Hunt. The then Earl of Mansfield, which I think was the fourth, firmly opposed to this because he was fearful that it would break up the own Perthshire Hunt due to the lack of interest and the lack of opportunities. Also in this time, London Charing Cross opened. 1868, dispute between the magistrates and the Hunt about the erection of the grandstand posts and rails for the races. Basically, the Hunt alleged that it had the right to keep up these permanent posts on the North Inch all year round, so that the racing could be viewed by the public as before. Ironically, the course on the North Inch was pretty much a carbon copy of the one that we have now at the racecourse, so it was a dead level course with nearly a mile and a quarter round, so it's quite good that we were actually able to mimic that back at Scone Palace as we know it now. And also, Thomas Edison applied for his first patent on the electric voice recorder. On to 1870, the Fred Archer had 3 rides at Perth. He went on winning the main race on Lincoln Last. This 13-year-old apprentice went to win on the Derby 5 times and the Championship 13 times. So again, getting someone of that calibre up to Perth back then was quite a feat, to be honest. 1890, this was the biggest prize pot I was ever offered. So there was £1,000 in prize money. I mean, that is some amount of money back in that day. And that was over the 3-day meeting again in September. And this was also when Ellis Island opened as an immigration depot. In 1891, it was agreed that the races held on alternative years. This was not successful, obviously. The year that you could race, you were abandoned. And the year that couldn't race, the year that you weren't scheduled to race, you could have raced. And this was actually the end of flat racing at Perth. And this was under the Jockey Club banner. This is now the British Horse Racing Authority, and now the Jockey Club is its own entity that runs 15 racecourses. And this was also the start of the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. In 1896, the Earl of Mansfield resumed racing on the North Inch under the rules of the National Pony Society and Galloway Racing. So this is out under the banner of the Jockey Club. It's still under conversation of whether these were actually legitimate races because they weren't under the overall racing authority nationally. But what they did mean was that the Perth Hunt guaranteed the prize money and all the facilities on the North Inch, which had been agreed by the Town Council. So it was a really huge commitment under the Hunt at this time. And this was really what probably kept Perth races to what it is today, because without this, it could have just gone by the wayside. and this was also the year that X-ray was discovered. Now this is really the turn of the modern day history of Perth. So in 1908, Perth once came under the national racing calendar, so under the Jockey Club, but this was under National Hunt. So jump racing, they went under the Perth Hunt, but obviously the hounds had been abandoned quite a bit before that. This was brought back, the 2-day September meeting held at Scone Palace, and this was thanks to the generosity of the 6th Earl of Mansfield. Obviously the great and the good made their way to the Scone for the inaugural meeting. There was obviously large press, nobility, etc. And one thing that we hope we continue today is the course safety. We're really big on that at Perth at the moment, and it was good to see that this was started back then. 1913, John Johnston on home brings 5 horses from Hong Kong to race at Perth, which I thought was quite incredible. He was a 35-year-old amateur, and he rode them all himself, and he'd had almost 1,000 winners, including 14 Chinese Grand Nationals, which I actually didn't know existed until I started looking into this. So I had to do a bit of research on that. And then he actually stayed on to be a steward at Perth up until 1935, so it's quite interesting, that little bit of continental history. This was also the year that suffragette Emily Davidson steps in front of the King George V during the Derby at Epsom, and Edinburgh Zoo also opened for the first time. Second minor scandal in the history of Perth racing. Due to a printing error, the 3-mile Mansfield Chase is recorded as a 2 miles. Major Jack Fairfax actually gave the result with the circuit to race. And then obviously the horses carried on racing, and then he amended the result. I'm not sure you get away with that nowadays, but there we are. 1924, this is where a bit more modern history comes in. So Bill Whitbread was an amateur rider. He won the National Hunt Frat race on his 10th one outside of Bruno, which he went on to win the Scottish National twice. But he actually started the Whitgrove Gold Cup at Sandown, which is obviously the final big day at Sandown in April. It's called the Bet365 Gold Cup now. And also in this time, this is when Tutankhamun was uncovered. In 1937, former National Hunt rider Noel Merles has 3 winners as a trainer, ridden by Jack Focus. You wonder why this is relevant. Well, actually, when he retired, he handed over his licence to his son-in-law, Henry Cecil. And I'm not sure how much everyone knows about flat racing, but he made great waves and obviously trained the legendary Frankel. So that's a nice picture of Noel Merles there. After the war, this was the first return of racing, with the first meeting in April, what we know as the first Perth Festival now. There was a new partnership of Neville Crump and jockey Arthur Thompson. Oh, sorry. Where's your talk coming up? Sends out 3 winners over 2 days. And this was also the inaugural year of the Edinburgh Festival. 1949, Ripon trainer Bobby Renton has 4 winners, ridden by champion jockey Tim Maloney. He actually has a Bobby Renton Chase at Wetherby now, named after him. He was famous because he had red rum before he sold it to Ginger McCain for 6,000 guineas. So what could have been for Bobby Renton, as they say. Back on keeping the theme a bit with red rum, Gordon Richards claims to win the Lunkertine Novice Steeple Chase. He actually had a bad fall in this race 4 years later, which ended his riding career prematurely, but obviously the legend is that made him the trainer he is today. And obviously his son, Nicky Richards, now takes on that licence and is a great supporter of Perth Racecourse as well. 1966, Red Alligator wins the Perthshire Challenge Cup. And then he actually went on to win the Grand National in 1968. So, again, some great Grand National pedigree starting off at Perth. 1967, Gordon Richards then had his first Perth winner since he started training. And this was the famous Lisbon Lions over in the European Cup. In 68, the new one-day fixture seen the return of Kirsten's son, Fashion House, who got the mark off in September, which was ridden by Richard Pittman. So this was actually the meeting that we now hold on the Monday in Perth. So the racing in September has obviously got quite a lot of history. And this was also sadly when Jim Clark died in his crash. 68, Fred Winter 4 times champion jockey. He's now on his way to 8 Trainers' Championships. Arctic Dawn was the horse when she won the novice hurdle, and Arctic Dawn became a pretty blooper for the Whittaker family. So obviously the Whittaker family have got long history at Perth. David Whittaker was chairman up until, I think it was 2016 when he unfortunately died. Obviously Fiona Whittaker, his wife, is still quite involved at his racecourse. Their daughter is Lucy Normal, who obviously used to train out of Glenfarg, and their 3 children, Ben, Abby and Josh, actually all work for us at the racecourse as well. So it's a really nice family heritage right through. And as I say, the Whittaker family have really strong links to racing in Perth from when it started. And then unfortunately there was also the Ibrox disaster where 66 supporters were killed. 73, Red Rum, history carries on through. So he won the Perth Challenge Cup by half a length from Proud Stone. That was his first race since winning the Grand National, which is quite cool. And then 1978, we go to John Joe O'Neill, massive trainer now. He was he won his first 2 Jockeys Championships, and he actually broke the record of Ron Barry's 125 winners in a season. He actually scored on all 5 mounts on the second day of the April Festival. Obviously, then P. McCoy has completely blown that record out of the water, and I think his record is 268 winners in a year. And sorry to put this in, but then this was when Scotland got beaten by Peru in the World Cup in Argentina. Tom Lang then retired as secretary, and Phil Tuck rides 4 winners at the August meeting on his way to equaling 10 wins on 10 rides spread over 12 days, which I was looking into has never been equalled before. So no one's ever won every race that they've ridden in at Perth. And this was when the famous Pixar animation studio opened for Disney. 1988, the Ballykelly Cup as Flying Ace attempts to register his 50th win of his extraordinary career. Everyone that watches horse racing now, you'll be amazed if a horse ran 50 times over jumps, never mind, won 50 races. Of course, he won, and he was earned his place against the Border Greats. And this was when the late and great Sam Morshead became the clerk of the course. Also in that year, Sally, there was a Lockerbie disaster, but then also Sandy Lyle won the Masters. 1989, Chris Grant won on the final day of the 3 Perth Festival on Suggest. And also Cyril Alexander, a local permit holder and previous steward at Perth, wins the Perth Your Memories handicap chase with Golden Fancy. Obviously, his son Nick now is a trainer down outside near Scotland Well. He's a very good supporter with us. He has carried on the family tradition, and sadly, Margaret Thatcher introduced a poll tax in Scotland. 1991, Ronnie Thorburn, the chairman, opened a new duo stand with Sir John Sparrow from the chairman of the Levy Board, and Liz McColgan won the World Athletics Championships by a margin of a huge 20 seconds. 1994, this was when Sam Morshead did a really great thing. He tried to get a lot of big tricks. Sorry, I don't know how much you know about Sam. Sam was an ex-jockey who then came up to Perth to be the Clark, then general manager. He had obviously a lot of roots down south with Kim Bailey, Nigel Twiston David, etc. And he did a really good PR, let's call it, of getting these big name trainers up here. And the star of the show that day was Master Oates, who then went on lately to win the 1995 Cheltenham Gold Cup. What I'd do to get a Gold Cup horse back to Perth nowadays. In 1995, Lucinda Russell won her first race with her first runner under her new licence in the handicap chase. Obviously, she'd had a lot of point-to-point and amateur winners, but this was her first official runner. And obviously, along with Nick Alexander, Lucinda's been a great patron to the racecourse over the years, and we probably wouldn't be able to do it without them too. And also that year was when O.J. Simpson got acquitted of merger. 1996, David Whittaker took over as chairman, and then Sam Morshead was employed as general manager. They went on for a good 20 years together, and they did some absolutely wonderful things to Perth. And Morag and I are really grateful to them because they've really given us the platform to really make the business what it is today. And it's under no illusion, without these two gentlemen, Perth Racecourse definitely wouldn't be the same. what it is today. It might not even be here, to be honest, without them. So it's quite amazing, really. In 1999, we had our first big August meeting with a 6,000 crowd, which was a course record at the time. Another one of the Southerners, Philip Hobbs, sent out a 55-1 treble, and it was obviously ridden by former champion jockey Richard Dunworthy. And then another Scot. This was also the year of the opening of the Scottish Parliament, and Paul Lawrie won the Open Golf at Coventry. 2000. This was when Sam Morshead decided to bring back the Perth Gold Cup. Adrian Maguire and Northumberland trainer Ferdy Murphy won the richest race of £20,000. This was the first time we can find it was completed since the 1700s, and obviously one of our key features of our calendar this still going on today. 2005, Alex Salmond opened our new £2 million grandstand, the Nelson Stand. We're especially grateful to an owner called Phil Nelson, hence the name Nelson Stand. He donated quite a lot of money to the racecourse, and I don't know if anyone's been to the racecourse and the Nelson Stand, but we also have a restaurant upstairs called the Galileo. Now, that's not the famous flat racehorse for Coolmore. That was actually one of Phil Nelson's horses called Galileo Over Jumps that was trained by Tom George. So there's a really good little history there from a really good patron of ours as well, Phil Nelson. And he still comes up to this day. He comes up and joins the April Festival. So it's really nice that he's continued association with us. And also, sadly, Pope John Paul the 11th died. 2006, Gold Cup, we had a record crowd of 10,000. I don't quite know how Sam crammed 10,000 people into Perth Racecourse. It's not something I'd be doing anytime soon, but fair play to him. And on that day, Kim Barry picked up the 30 grand purse, carrying the colours of the well-known Mr. and Mrs. Raymond and Green, which he's a Borders-based gentleman, and he's been a huge supporter of racing in Scotland for over 40 years. And he still has, his horses have dwindled a little bit, but he's still got quite a few at the moment. 2011, we had our first charity race day. Somehow Sam got these crowds coming back, and we got 11,000 in that day, including the Duke and Duchess of Rothesay. We actually had a little flirt with camel racing back then. I'm not sure who bought that idea, but fair play to him. Again, I think Sam was a bit creative, let's say, in his ideas for the racecourse, and it's something to talk about. And on that day, the great overturn trade by Donald McCain romped to victory in our £40,000 summer hurdle. So a really good day, that. And again, Sam, I don't know how he got 11,000 in the racecourse, but he did. 2012, Lucinda Russell, after 17 years of training, becomes the leading trainer at Perth for the first time. She sends out 13 winners throughout the year, which is obviously a modern-day record for a Scottish trainer. And obviously, this was the London Olympics, but also when Lance Armstrong was finally found out for doping. 2016, we opened our lodge at Perth Racecourse. This has now just been turned into the Riverstone Lodge, operated by Katie, who ran Brown and Blacks in Scone. She actually just opened on Monday with the new big just venture, so I really urge you to go and support her. And yeah, it's a 26-bedroom hotel, and we also have 115 stables for the horses. And it's a really good facility for us. This helps us get all the horses from Ireland and the south up and stay. And I don't think we'll be able to do it. Also on this year was the first term for Donald Trump and Brexit, so I'm not sure how we view that year outside of racing. I don't think it was too shiny for us all. 2020, this was when the first big break was in COVID. Racing actually didn't start until August. Very weird year. We actually we moved the Gold Cup from June to August that year. We actually had about 100 horses, but we had to race behind closed doors, so we actually had no crowd. We raced like that for about 6 months, and it was probably the weirdest experience in my life because there was no crowd, there was no cheering, it was just horses going around in a circle. And I hope we don't go back there again, to be honest. 2023. after COVID, Perth went under some really tricky times with the building of the hotel and the lodge. The 2020 and 2021, the racecourse was on its knees. We were he wanted to bring the racecourse back under the banner, so they bought over the racecourse from the Perth Hunt. Is it not working? All right. Brilliant. We've had some really big investment. We refurbished the 1908 stand, so that was a new restaurant and a new pub called the Bonnie Jockey. This year we're having to spend a hell of a lot of money on a new weighing room, and obviously, as I said, Perth, they paid off Perth's debt of over £1 million. It is under no illusion that probably if Scoon hadn't come in and bought us out, we might not be functioning today as it is, and this was only 2 years ago. So it was a really big thing for us and the racecourse and Perth. And then in 2023 was the hottest year on record, apparently. 2025 was a big year for us last year. We took on the inaugural Scoon Palace Horse Trials in August. This was after Blair Castle ended their horse trials. We got a lot of support far and wide, and it was a great event. I have got a few slides that I'll just flip over to in a second to show you just some of the stats. And then this year was obviously, sadly, that Donald Trump started his second presidential term. What I'll do is, Scoon Horse Trials, obviously took on last year, basically, in July 2025, we got wind that Blair Athol wanted to get rid of the horse trials. So I mentioned to my boss at the Palace, Brian Stevenson, I said, wouldn't this be a fun idea? I kind of got told that we'd done it before because there'd been horse trials in Scotland in the 70s and then in the late and early 2000s. Kind of went really quiet. I then got a phone call at the beginning of September saying we've got it, and I was like, we've got what? And then we've got the horse trials. I was like, all right, fantastic. I said, what's happening with that? And he goes, well, you asked for it, so you've got it. And I was like, okay. So it was a huge undertaking from the team. I mean, to turn an event of this caliber around in under 10 months was nothing short of phenomenal. I'm really grateful to everybody, whether it's my team, people that came in as contractors, and then also the local public, and then all the horsemen men and women that supported us. So it was 5 days. We got 27,432 people through the gate over these 5 days. We had 4,700 riders, owners and trainers. So on site over the 5 days, if you count the crowd plus the riders and horsemen, we're probably just shy of 35,000 people, which when we were running race days for 7,000 people, as you can see, it was a much big step up. We had 200 shopping and food concessions. We had 1,700 horses over those 5 days. And I can tell you now that blew my mind a little bit when we're used to operating 80 a day. And then we also had 850 exhibitors with their teams. It was quite an interesting customer profile. I would thought horse events, all predominantly women, but actually it was 65% women, 35% male. There was a really good spread of ages, as you can see, from 35 to 65. There was a real strong cohort of people. We were quite surprised how many, 18 to 24s came, and that's where we see the growth area. But we felt we had a really good foundation to start, the Scoon Horse Trials era. So again, I'll just give you some fluffy stuff that might not mean anything to you, but we got 11.7 million social media views. We had over 600,000 people visit our website. We've got a 12,000 people mailing list now. And again, on the media coverage, we've got 55 million people digital media views. We've got over 600,000 readership in traditional press, so that's the Courier to Horse and Hound. And then we managed to get 150 press articles out of it. I'm eternally thank you to my media team for this, because we wouldn't have got any of near with that without them. And then also we did something, signed a deal with something called Clip My Horse, so they're like an online streaming platform for eventing solely, and that got 42,000 live streams, and the average watch was 40 minutes, and that had a social media reach of 500,000. So that's just showing that actually, you know, for our first year, we really got the word out about Scone horse trials quite a lot. These audiences went from the UK to USA, New Zealand, Ireland, Germany, Australia, Canada. So you can really see it gave a worldwide profile to the event, and we're just hoping that we can just build on that next year. And obviously, the benefit to the wider Perth economy was absolutely phenomenal, and we're just hoping we can continue that. And I think that was it, really. I do have a few pictures I could show you, if I can find them. And it was just really, just to give you a good overview of what we did in the event. But you'll have to bear with me 1 second. While I find these, is there any questions that anyone would like to throw out there? Yeah? Is that Yvonne, yeah?
Surprised when you said that horse racing is a women's thing more than men.
No, the eventing.
Sorry?
The eventing, so like the horse trials.
Oh, right.
That's what I meant, sorry.
To me, it's all horse things.
Yeah, well...
Anyway, the question was female jockeys. What's the kind of split between men and women these days?
So it's interesting. So it depends on the code. So flat racing is a lot more heavily laden towards women. I'd say it's about 60-40. So 60% male, 40% women. In jumps racing, it's a lot less. So I'd say maybe 20-80. Principal, one of those reasons is weight. The flat weights are a lot lower than the jump weights. So, for example, a traditional flat jockey will be maximum weight they're allowed to weigh is about 9 stone 10. Jumps is 11 stone 12. So as you can see, you know, genetically there's a lot more scope for women. Obviously, look, it's one of the things the BHA are working on. I think one thing the sport doesn't shout about enough is that this is one of the few sports that men and women compete on equal fields. You know, you don't get that hardly anywhere. You know, out there are a lot of better female jockeys and a lot of better male jockeys. So yeah, it is. It's more flat orientated, and that's again maybe a weight thing. Obviously, as we sat, you know, as you know, everyone's getting heavier in the world. But it's definitely more of a flat thing than jumps. Yeah.
Any women won any major competitions yet?
Well, obviously, not obviously. So probably the greatest, well, one of the greater jockeys and just female is Rachel Blackmore from over in Ireland. She won every big race under the sun. So she's won the Grand National, she's won the Cheltenham Gold Cup, she's won everything, to be honest. And she retired in, I think it was either 23 or 24, and she actually rode at Perth Ladies' Day 2 years ago. So yeah, no, sadly she's retired. It was quite an impromptu retirement, but she's achieved everything she needed to achieve. So I think she just said, that'll do.
Well, Matthew's looking for pictures. Have we got any more questions? Yes, one at the back. Just incidentally, how many people here have been to the races at Perth?
Oh, brilliant.
Oh, good number.
Thank you very much for the presentation and also the juxtaposition of sort of international or national things as well as parochial things. A couple of why questions.
Yeah.
Why flat racing and why jump racing, or steeplechase or whatever it is,
Yeah.
you can tell, like Yvonne, it's 4 legs and a tail, really, as far as I can work
definitely.
out. And the other point that you made was when you said it was sort of 9 stone 3 for flat racing and 11.5 stone. Why? So it's just why questions, really.
Good questions. Right, flat racing. So flat racing was the start of everything in horses. So again, you're going to really test my memory here. I reckon in about, I think it was like during the 1500s, the Earl of Derby and the Earl of, I can't remember the other one, they basically had a match race. So they had 2 horses, and they bet against each other, and they said, my horse is faster than yours. And they had a race of about 2 miles, and that was the start of flat racing. They then brought over 3 horses from, they call them Arabian horses, so there was one called Darley, and I can't remember the 2 others, and that's when horse breeding started. So they started breeding our horses with these Arabian bred horses to develop speed and stamina. Flat racing then has started right now, is through from then to right now. Flat racing is predominantly about breeding, so people are trying to get the best stallion or the best mare to breed from, and that's where you make all your money. And they obviously do that at the studs. Jump racing came out of the hunts, so that was just more of an enjoyment thing. There's no breeding in that, so a lot of the male horses are gelded. Actually, that's a complete lie. Every male horse is gelded in jump racing. They're not doing it for this prestigious breeding to make loads of money out of. People do it because they love national hunt and jump racing. Flat racing is obviously miles more popular around the world. Every racing nation has flat racing, whereas jump racing is a very UK and Ireland thing. It's not very popular anywhere else in the world. USA have a little bit, Australia have a little bit, but it's just the one that grabs the public's attention and eye for some reason in UK and Ireland. I love jump racing. I find flat racing a little boring. And that's how I fell in love with racing. But yeah, it's more just, it started off as a literally 2 rich men betting against each other, saying I'm faster than you, and that's how flat racing came about. And jump racing is just the love for the public. And what was the other question? The weights. So flat racing, you can start racing a flat, what they usually do, they race a flat horse at 2 years old, and they'll race at 3 years old, and then they'll usually retire them at stud. If they're very good, they'll retire them and go to stud, and they'll start breeding because that's where all the money is. Whereas jump racing, you'll race up until the 12, 13. So the weight on the back is just due to the development of the horse. Obviously, if you put in 2-year-olds, sometimes obviously aren't as developed as a 4, 5, 6-year-old. So the lighter weight is just kinder to the horse. Whereas with jump horses, you don't start racing until 4 years old, when obviously they've strengthened up and matured, so the weights can be higher. Got them here.
One more, Mathew, over here.
Yeah, crack on, yeah.
Hello. Are you able to give us an idea, even approximately, what proportion of horses get injured at some time in their career?
Well, there'll be definitely more injuries over jumps than there are on the flat. I'd say the official BHA stats are something like, I think it's 0.2% of horses throughout a year will get injured, and then 0.01 will sadly die. At Perth, we've got a really good injury record. A non-injury record, sorry. We don't have a good injury record. And, I mean, last year, I think I had 3 injured horses on the track out of 670 runners. So we had quite a good reputation on that front. That was purely, I mean, so the big thing at the moment is obviously equine welfare and public perception. The one that the BHA perceives to be the biggest danger to horse racing is summer jumping, because you're racing on drier ground, which means the horses are going quicker, but also the temperatures. So we've really focused on reducing our injury rate. We actually used to race 15 times a year. Me and my team dropped that down to 12. The rationale behind that was to give ourselves a longer break between fixtures. What that has allowed us to do is it gives the turf a bit of a break, and we can do more maintenance on it. And since we've dropped these fixtures, we've seen a massive reduction in injury rates because the turf's better quality, so it's safer for the horses to run on. We've also changed our hurdles from birch to padded. So they used to be traditional birch hurdles where you literally had a hurdle stuffed with birch. Now they're like a foam pad. So now when the horses jump, they don't get the nicks and the injuries on the legs or anything. So we're always thinking about that because, as I say, that we're perceived that summer jumping is like almost the bad egg of the horse racing family. But I argue my injury rates are a lot less than a winter track. So I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, please do.
It's a truism that the bookie always wins. Now, you're an insider, so do you have any tips to help us?
Well, the bookie mostly wins, but if I had that much knowledge, I don't think I'd be studying right now, would I?
I was thinking, you think it's unique that you fell out of economics and went into the racing industry? And we have a distant family friend who was an accountant, and he was in one of the big four companies. Then one day decided, I don't want to do this anymore, and he went into the racing industry. Just like you.
Really?
And he's now Chief Financial Officer at Ascot.
Oh, fantastic. Much cleverer than me, though, I must add.
Time will tell.
I have a question. You said you don't do weddings anymore, but looking at my interest, which is sadly not horse racing, but more music, do you do any music festivals?
Sorry, I couldn't see you there. I was really confused where that was coming from. No, we do try to do weddings anymore, but there's been a rise of the empty barn, which has absolutely killed our business. So obviously a lot of farmland have these big empty barns, and what they do is they lend them out to people, and then they can do everything all in one, and that's the way weddings have gone. Music styles, so obviously we're linked with Scone Palace, so obviously the Rewind Festival was there for a long time. They had something called Save the Rave, which I won't bore you with, but it was awful. We are looking to do more stuff like that now. We've got like a really good foundation, and obviously the opening of the Tailink Crossing has massively helped our business for accessibility and getting people in and out. So we are looking at more and more of that side, but it's just quite difficult getting new events set up, that obviously the cost is huge to go on these events, and it's a bit of a risk, and the team took a massive risk with the horse trials, but we are looking into do that in conjunction with the Palace, yeah. But yeah, Rewind was held, I don't know how long Rewind, I think Rewind was about 15 years, and sadly that withered to the end and that stopped. But obviously, on the grounds, we also host the Scottish Game Fair, which is held in Scone Palace grounds. There's Paws at the Palace, which is a dog show. There's a Scone Palace Garden Fair, which gets about 8,000 people. So there's loads of stuff going on, and as I say, we're always looking to try and get something a bit different going.
Do you want to take us through some of your photos now, Mathew?
I finally found the picture, so sorry about that. Is it going to let me go from next? Yeah. So just 1 minute. So this was our members' facility. So this was on the edge of the main arena. That was enjoyed to about 1,000 people per day. So a normal ticket was about £20-25 on normal days, and you'd probably pay about £60 for this, but it was your own private marquee where you had, sit-down meals, bar facilities, nicer toilet facilities, etc., etc. So that was quite good. There's a lovely little man in his spaniel with his binoculars. This was the start of the dressage. So as you can see, these are dressed a lot plusher than racing. So everybody competing wears the white trousers, the proper nice jackets and everything. and the horses are a lot. I mean, I shouldn't say this, but the horses are a lot nicer looking than race horses as well. I'm just going to fly through it. So these again, this is just the members' lawn. We were very blessed as well. We've got to say, like, while it was a huge success, we owe a lot to the weather. We got very lucky. It was 5 days of 20 to 26 degrees, not a drop of rain, you know, unlike Scotland. So we're under no illusion that whilst it was a huge success this year, we did get a little lucky. So sadly, most of my life at the moment is doomsday planning, so I'm planning for it to be a disaster and a complete washout. Where everyone else tries to remain positive, I'm Mr. Negative. But I suppose that's the way you've got to be. I'm just trying to get some pictures of overall, but I don't think he got much. So he's not going to have. So as you can see, we had loads of different, like, coffee, churros, vans. We had about 42 catering units, which were big. To tell you what the biggest seller was, and this proves how the weather was, our ice cream man had 4 vans, and he sold £170,000 worth of ice cream over the 5 days. Which is absolutely nuts. It's absolutely nuts. As you see, we're a dog-friendly event, so the main thing about this was we were trying to create, like, this family atmosphere. So, you know, because unfortunately, it falls on English bank holiday, which is great for us, but obviously Scottish schools are backed by them. So we did get quite, well, I say the weekend was heavily laden with kids, but there was also a lot of kids on the Thursday and Friday that I thought should have been in school, but anyway. But yeah, no, we were completely dog friendly. What we did a bit differently as well, in racing, we try and really make a big deal of the owners. These are the people that really fund the sport. We found out that in eventing, they didn't really treat the owners the same way. It was more just, you know, it was just more, there's a cup of coffee and a biscuit, you're done. Whereas we tried to give them a bit more glam and gave them a meal and stuff like that, because, you know, these people at the end of the day are throwing thousands and thousands and thousands into this sport, and a bit like racing, not getting much out of it. So we hope that we gave them a bit of a better feel. And, you know, at the end of the day, ultimately the owners make a decision to come to your venue. So we kind of thought, well, if we give them a good time, they might insist to come back. So I'm hoping that has bore out, but we won't find out. As I said, on the family theme again, so what we did was we had a lot of mechanical horses, and it was just trying to get young kids in to learn how to ride, see if they got a fancy of it. I could see a lot of pain on a lot of parents' faces because they could see how expensive their life was about to be going to get. Because I know people, anyone's been associated with horse or have got a horse, they are basically a bottomless pit of money. So, as much as I ride and love horses, I have not bought one, nor will I be doing anytime soon, because for that very reason. As you see, there was quite a lot of good Scottish heritage throughout it, and as you can see in the background, just a lot of horses grazing. So what we're different to a lot of horse trials is a lot of horse trials have something just called the cross-country, dressage, and show jumping. We actually went full whack, so we had all the local showing, so like all the hunter workers and everything like that. So what this does, the premise of that was that every regional farm show has all these showing and hunter trials and stuff, and what it does was we wanted to make it that everybody could get to Scone. So we hope that's the way that Scone almost is like the support mechanism for a lot of other local shows, because they've got something to aspire to. So we're just going to try and keep that going throughout the year. Obviously, all the stalls and the shopping. Like I said, Neverton Equestrian are obviously a big, one of the bigger indoor arenas and stuff just outside of Perth, and we all support each other. And we wouldn't be able to do it without Neverton and all the others, also they probably wouldn't function as well without us. So it's kind of like a symbiotic relationship, which is a bit different to racing, whereas we're all kind of competing against each other in a friendly way, obviously. So it's quite nice to see. We were quite surprised at the whole community behind the eventing family, we'll call it. We've never really experienced that before, and it was really nice to see. Obviously, we were big on the Scottish theme. just as an interesting side note, which I was very surprised at, we were in association with a company called Event Mobility, and we actually let out 55 electric scooters every day, so which I was quite surprised at. So it was kind of showing the breadth of the range of people that come, and even walking the dog. Again, just a bit more food. Sorry, there's a hell of a lot of photos, and so obviously the main premonition for us was trying to keep this association with the palace and the event. And as you can see, we've got the main arena kind of got a really nice view of the palace. And it just created this more historic thing because obviously it was the crowning place of Scottish kings, and then we were trying to do this new event, and it kind of worked. It worked really well, actually. More food. Now my internet stopped working. We had a really good. We were sponsored by Subaru, and they lent us about 25 vehicles throughout the event just to do all the running round and stuff in. And they've come back again and again. It's without these key sponsors. So our biggest sponsors were Malcolm Group, Subaru, and Brooks McDonald. And without these guys, the event wouldn't be able to run because, as you can imagine, the setup cost for these events is absolutely astronomical. The figures involved were quite mind-boggling, actually. So we were really lucky that we do have a lot of good support out with Perthshire, and we're hoping we can build on that again this year because we really need to. As you can see, the weather was just phenomenal, to be honest. Again, food. So, yeah. So these are a few of our biggest sponsors as well. So BedMax, so they're all about the horse bedding. It's all about dust-free shavings because you don't want your horses breathing in any dust. Equine products, so they're like they do like equine supplements and stuff. They were a really key sponsor for us. And Duralock, I don't know if any of you made it to Scone Horse Trials this year, but the main arena that was all that lovely white rail was donated by Duralock to us, and that's still up in the Palace grounds at the moment. And that was actually used at the back end of the year. Farming Yesteryear used it to do all their little dog shows in as well. So again, the foundations that we've put in for the horse trials are now being used to create wider business, which is really helpful to us. Obviously Howdens. And then I think that's really the main bump of it. I've got a few oversight pictures which I'll just show you. So just to give you the scale of the event. So as you can see, really big here. So this was our main arena. As you can see, that's the members facility with all the trade stands around it. We then had Arena 2, which was a bit low level than the quality in the main arena. And then we had Arenas 3 and 4 here. This was the car park that we used, which on the Saturday we had about 4,500 cars in the end, which was a hell of a lot. And then the cross country went up here into the palace. So you can see it was quite a big footprint that we had to manage. Thankfully, it all went okay. The ironic thing is we don't actually have that much scope to grow the site because within all the cross country courses we had, there's not actually that much room left. So we're having to be a bit cute this year. And then I think I might just have a little video for a drone flyover, although my laptop's just crashed. Which, if I have a drone flyover here, I think I might. It's not going to work now, is it? I don't think. No, it's not going to work. Sorry about that. But yeah, that, it was a huge undertaking for the team. It went really well, and we're just hoping we can grow it for, for the event in Scotland, but also for the wider Perth community, because I think every hotel, campsite, B&B was booked up from here to Blairgowrie for the whole week, and it brings a huge amount into the economy, and we're just hoping we can, Perthshire will start seeing the wider benefits of it. That might work. Yeah, so as you can see, this was kind of a drone flyover, just showing you how big the event was. Furthermore, in the centre of the racecourse is where we had all the horses. So in the centre there, we had all 1,700 horses. That was the start-finish of the cross-country. You can see how dry it is because everything's browned off, which we don't get. And obviously right next to the River Tay. So you can see that was so there you see that was the horse box part with all the stabling on the left, and then on the far side at the back was the campsite. So as you can see, it was for us from running 6,500 people with 80 horses a day. We went to, well, this. So it was quite a big undertaking for us. But as I said, it went quite well. So we're just hoping we can build on it next year and just keep going. But you can see how close the racecourse and the palace are in this respect, because the palace is just up here as well. So yeah, it was a really good event. And yeah, we're just hoping we can grow it for the next 5 years. Is there any other questions? More than welcome to ask about the horse trials as well, not just the racing or anything like that. Yeah? Oh, we've got a few, yeah. Oh no, I think there's a couple of questions. Yeah. I think... There's a lady there and then a lady at the back as well.
Welfare effect to racing. How does horse welfare come into effect of the racing?
How does horse welfare?
Yeah.
Racing is actually quite at the forefront of horse welfare in all of equine sports. So there's a company called the Horse Racing Levy Board, and what that does is that distributes racing's funds to prize money, horse welfare and stuff like that. One of the key pillars is about veterinary care. So a lot of what we funded has actually advised the rest of the equine world. So whether it's, injuries, recovery rates, there's been a big push for heart monitors now. So they're putting monitors on a horse as it runs to see the stress it puts on the animal. Again, they're used a lot in training yards and stuff. So racing's always been quite at the forefront of horse welfare. Obviously, because it's the most prominent equine sport, and because we're associated with gambling, it has a little bit of a bad name. That we're quite forward thinking. As I said, we've done a lot of changes at the racecourse to really minimise the injury rates. At the end of the day, equine welfare is the biggest threat to racing. So we're always going to push on with that. And I think there's a lady over there.
Hello.
Last one, I think.
Hi, thank you very much for all of that information. I'm new to Perth, so I don't know the answers to some of the questions, but I was interested, how long did it take to actually create the racecourse where it is? I did not know that it was on the Inch before it went to the present site. How long did it take to actually create it and build the jumps and everything?
I think in 1908 it literally was just it's like a parallelogram shape, and it literally would have had a winning post and the jumps, and that would have taken a year to get going. That doesn't take a lot, but as I went through the presentation, obviously there's been the development of the we call it the club stand, which was actually built in 1908, which is a listed stand, and then the Dewey stand and the Nelson stand. So it's always growing to get racing on, which is what happens at the point to point, which is just more amateur racing. Is all you need is 8 jumps and a round circuit, and obviously decent ground. So to get racing on, not that much, but to make it to what it is today, it's been obviously 115 years in the making, and we're always looking forward to get it going again. So yeah, it's just always a developmental thing, and we'll just see where we end up.
I'll call on John to give a vote of thanks.
Well, my first visit to Perth Racecourse was in 1984. It's 37 years to my second visit in 2021. But what I have to say was noticeable was the fact that it hadn't changed a lot and remained a very charming racecourse, and it had retained that over the years, whether place in many sporting venues, whether it be horse racing, football, cricket, not always for the better. But met the demands of the modern day and the growing population. But the fact that it remained very charming and also met these demands and got people coming back year after year, whether it be from Ireland, England and from around Scotland, is much because of Mathew and his team. They're a very, very small team of people who work very, very hard and put on some great events. They manage the course really well and got plenty of runners for us to watch. And now, added, we've got the horse trials that Mathew's referred to, which can hopefully be a really big event for Perth going forward, as it was this year. it can probably bring more money to the town, or city of Perth, should I say, in terms of hospitality in 1 week than the rest of than horse racing does over the whole season. So it's great that there's that addition for the people who enjoy their horses in Perth. But anyway, thank you very much, Mathew, for bringing this to all of our attention, answering many, many questions today, and giving us some background today. And I like to think I know a fair bit about horse racing. So could we just show our appreciation, please, to Mathew?
Folks, thanks very much. Good meeting today. Next meeting is on the 9th of February. And we'll be talking about, hearing and learning about Octorada Cinema. Okay, thanks for coming.